Hello, welcome to the Cafe One Pod. I know you may have missed us, and if you didn't miss us, why you're wrong. You should miss us. I missed us. I missed you guys as well. Today's guest is someone that has founded so many companies that trust me, I can't even remember everything because he has founded so many companies. He's very popular in the tech space, in the Nigerian tech space, and he's here. So I don't know why I'm telling you about him when he's here. He can tell you about himself. So here's Ebun, our guest on today's show.
Hey, am I supposed to clap for myself?
I don't know if you want to.
Well, how's everyone doing? It's a pleasure to be here. Looking forward to having a conversation with you.
You've been having conversation with me for like hours now.
I have.
Yeah.
That's because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, but we didn't start on time.
Okay. Yeah, you're allowed to say it.
I am, right? So yeah, so because we didn't start on time, we've had chance for bants, and
Yeah.
it's been. I mean, I wish some of it was captured because some of it was actually
Very interesting.
very interesting. I'm not
Let's call it that.
I'm not sure if it's like appropriate for all ages. Like, in the world of podcasting, do they do like PG-17?
Yeah, definitely.
Like
yeah,
PG-11? Like,
definitely.
do they warn people like have a drink before you listen to this? Or like if you are depressed or suicidal,
Do not listen
Do
to
not
this.
listen.
I'm sure there will be trigger warnings, like where it's fitting that there should be a trigger warning. But hopefully, we don't need a trigger warning in this episode.
Okay, I will try my best.
So, would you say you are a compassionate person?
Ooh, so I'm not. This is also a function of. So I'm a huge fan of Christopher Hitchens. And if you were to read the last page of Hitchens' book, where it talks, it's called one of his books at least, "Letters to a Young Contrarian." Now I'm slightly older, so, but in "Letters to a Young Contrarian," Hitchens says, "Distrust compassion. Prefer dignity for yourself and others." So compassion implies that I am in a place to extend to you some version of mercy, money, favor, something along those lines. It challenges us to distrust it.
And prefer dignity.
Yeah, because there's some narcissism, I think, fundamentally behind compassion. But if we walk towards ensuring that everyone has a dignified life, not a compassionate one. So it's probably why I'm usually anti like Oxfam and hate and all these things. No, I would prefer that people have the capacity to build themselves up, walking towards a world that's more dignified as opposed to one that's a bit more compassionate. I know it sounds abstract.
Yeah.
And I hope your audience does not think I'm the most boring human being they've ever spoken to. If I am, I'm sorry. I just can't help it. But yeah, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure they won't think that. Okay, so let's make you less boring. Let's bring you out of the
overthinking.
Yeah, the deep portions of who Ebun is. Are you happy?
No.
Why are you not happy?
Number one, I suspect biological.
What does that mean?
So I'm clinically bipolar. So that in of itself brings with it challenges that I've learned to navigate and deal with.
Okay.
So I've accepted that that's always going to affect how I view things. Um, and Scott Galloway is the one that says this the most, but you know, it's never as good or as bad as you think. So if we were to win at Bento a major account and the entire team is jumping up, I tend to be the one that doesn't jump up as much. Because, yeah, I know that on the flip side of that win, it's probably going to be like 20,000 customer complaints. My salary didn't drop on time. My pension, so the win, that's good. If you lose an account, I also tend to not get too down because I'm like, yeah, it happens. You fall in love for the first time. You try to be mindful of the fact that, yeah, this euphoria is only going to last for about 4 or 5 months and life kicks in. And that's what you need to be able to manage. Likewise, if you're going through a breakup, you're probably thinking, hey, my life is over. This is not good. But if you're able to just, I guess, I don't know. So yeah, I tend to not set happiness as a goal. I look at things as like, yo, all right, this happened. I don't like it. Okay, I like it. Cool. Yeah.
Okay. So with your not being happy and living in Nigeria, do you find that there is an environment or a cloud of unhappiness?
You know, it's so interesting because I do live in 2 countries fundamentally. I am the only one in my immediate family in Nigeria. I don't even have a first cousin in Nigeria. My parents, my siblings, they're all in the US. If I live here today and I'm driving by my friend's house, I can just like tell my driver, hey, pull over, knock on the door. Hey, is he home? Yes. Stop by and just hang out. Now, in the US, if I'm even going to see some of my best friends, I have to call. Like if I just showed up and I was like, hey, what's up? They're like, wait, was I expecting you? Like, you know, so I think the culture that we have here, even though it lacks that material advantage and it just sometimes feels incredibly fragile, there's something to be said about the sense of community and the fact that we have each other's back. Family still means something. We might be losing it, but at least the culture itself promotes this high context where we don't mind our own business. We make sure that we're in each other's faces. Whereas in the West, it can be incredibly lonely because it's an individualistic society that calls for you to just look out for you. So the cloud certainly does exist in terms of looking at the challenges that people are having, paying for stuff, feeding their families, paying salaries, doing all these different things. Daily life has become a bit more complex and expensive. And I fundamentally understand all of that, but yet through that, I think the bonds of togetherness and friendship and all those things still exist. And even the tough economic conditions have not broken that. So look at COVID in the US. The murder rate went up. Violent crimes went up. All sorts of crazy stuff went up. We didn't have the same issues there.
But I think that's largely because we have like a data gathering problem as a people. We cannot say that it did not go up because we have a data gathering issue here.
We don't have random shootings. Like last night, some kid went to
Fair
go and
enough.
shoot up like a school. It's not because we don't have guns. I mean, they have knives in the UK and they just knife each other up every day. We don't hear of people getting shanked walking down the streets here.
Or they are not reported, maybe.
I am not saying that we have a perfect society. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that things are all great. We have challenges, but I think the question is to draw, and what I'm trying to do is to do a comparative analysis in terms of the culture that we have here versus Western culture. And I think I prefer
the culture here
to Western culture simply because I think that we still fundamentally understand that none of us can get through life alone. Yeah.
That's very fair. There's a lot of communal sense in Nigeria. We have people always willing to support. If you come from a family, which a lot of people come from, most people come from families, you hardly see family locking the next person out. There's always a space to call home. There are people that will always open up their doors to you. But all of this is nice. It's great. It's fun. But when you're living in a place that it seems like your life is passing you by, where it feels like your roaring 20s have been taken away from you, where it feels like you can be working, earning a 6-figure salary for, most of your life now. Let's say in the last 5 years, you left uni at maybe 21, 22, 23. You managed to earn a salary of around, like, let's say your first salary was 100,000 and now you're earning, let's say, 800,000. And not much has changed since the 100K and the 800K. It's like hustling in reverse. You're improving in your earnings, but standard of living is not improving. And it doesn't look like it's going to improve in the next 2 months. It doesn't look like it's going to improve in the next 1 year, in the next 7 years even. It's almost like everything is in reverse, right? So how do you think that people that are living that type of life, do you think that they can sustain the values that you cherish currently? Do you think that will be the main thing going through their mind? They're not able to afford life.
So, I mean, when we talk about the affordability of life, I mean, fundamentally, what are we talking about? Like, life inherently is not expensive. We make it expensive by, making Netflix a necessity, by making, going to expensive dinners a necessity, by making travel and vacations a necessity. The truth is, most of what we all need in life is just really just food and shelter. So life is not, shouldn't be inherently overly expensive. I think the flatness of the world, and the speed in which information and communication spreads has created a benchmark in which most people aspire to. So when we look at the influencers and we see how they're living, when we look at the tech entrepreneurs who are doing great, we look at the pop stars who are doing awesome. We look at, some random guy in the US driving his Ferrari down a well-paved street. We start to inherently draw comparisons. And I think, to your point about happiness, I think there's a formula for happiness, which is like, expectations minus reality, right? So if you don't necessarily expect way too much, so like, for example, I was just talking to one of the guys behind the camera here, who I think is a degenerate gambler. So it's a joke we had prior to this, guys. But he's a day trader, so he trades stocks. I think, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this, but I think day traders, crypto boys, please, guys, my crypto guys, I love you guys, please, and of course the gamblers, all my guys that own betting companies, Gussie, Bet King, I love you. Bet Niger guys, I love you guys, but but the fact is, when you kind of put those three together, they come into this class of degenerates. I call them degenerate gamblers, right? And I'm so gonna get in trouble for this, but it's okay. I'm used to it. So if you invest, and this has been proven scientifically, by the way. So if you invest $5, allow me to use dollars, and you were expecting that the stock will go to 20. So that means your expectation was that of a $15 gain. Let me make sure I phrase this right. And then you have somebody else that invested $1, and expected the stock to go to 5. 6 months later, the person that invested $1, the stock is now at 7. So that means they made $6. The person that invested 5, the stock is now at 18. So 18 minus 5 is what? 13. So that means they made $13. When you go and do the brain scan and MRI and everything, you find that the person that made the $6 is happier than the person that made $13.
And it's fair enough, because $1 to $7 is 7 times. $5 to 13 is 2 point something times.
But it's not about that. It's about expectations, right? Because ultimately, the person that, in ultimate terms, $1 is still $1.
$1, yeah.
So if you made 13, you still made more money than the other person. You should be happier than the other person.
But I didn't want to make 13 though.
That's the thing, right? So I think when we talk about happiness, it's really about calibrating our expectations and not getting too trapped in this world of otherliness and looking at what this person is doing and that person is doing, and comparing yourself to others, because I think that's fundamentally what causes a huge chunk.
So where does ambition fall into, like, in all of this? If I'm not going to compare myself with someone, if I'm not going to expect better, where will ambition fall in?
I think being intrinsically driven is very, very important. And I have nothing bad to say about that. And I think you should go to the depths of where life, the farthest reaches of where life will take you. You should definitely go there, right? I am not making an argument against that. I think it's a bit more on the consumerism side. It's a bit more on the everyday, day-to-day stuff. So, you go on Instagram and you see relationship goals because some guy is like kissing his girl, but he's gonna slap her once they're done, once they put the camera down. But you're thinking relationship goals, not knowing that she's in an abusive relationship. You see some guy in a club flashing money, not knowing that he holds like money to like 20,000 people. You see someone in a private jet, not knowing that like literally they're on the verge of bankruptcy. And I think the downside of this social experiment that we continue to conduct in these platforms, on TikTok, on Instagram, on all of these places that allows us to show the best of life. And when we're completely being bombarded with the best of life, and the social media companies are making sure that they, fix the algorithms to show us,
not quite getting the best of life,
what we want to see, you start to compare yourself, and you start to thinking you're not doing as well as you are. When in reality, if you are the one that's setting your own goals and setting your own benchmarks, as opposed to allowing society to set that for you, you find out that you're not doing so bad. I think that this goes for us as individuals, it goes for us as communities, it goes for us as nation states. There are some mistakes that we have made from a country level. When we start to pursue agendas like artificial intelligence, we're not there. Why are we pursuing that? Let's pursue agriculture. Let's pursue plumbing. Let's pursue carpentry. Let's pursue proper welding. Like the guy that fixes I just had a laundromat blow up because my electrician didn't do basic checks. But because the world is talking AI, we feel like we should be a part of this race. And we don't necessarily need to be a part of every race. When you see your friends with 3 cute kids, you don't necessarily need to be a mother of 3 cute kids. Like, it's okay to just...
But what if that's what I want? People are allowed to want stuff.
Absolutely. If that's what you want, and you can make a case for what you want. But I feel like a lot of what we want these days, and back to, we talked about this, Paul Graham talked about this, founder mode, this idea of what an entrepreneur is supposed to look like, how you're supposed to conduct business meetings, how you're supposed to do this and that. Unfortunately, I made the decision to let someone go yesterday, and he said to me, he said, "You're the coolest CEO I've ever met in my life." I don't know if my goal was to be the coolest CEO. I'm not trying to be the coolest CEO. That's not the goal. I don't think my investors give me money to be the coolest CEO. But I also don't know what a CEO is supposed to be. I just know that my job is to make sure I return money for my investors, right? But in the process, we've drawn this picture of how people are supposed to be, how people are supposed to act. So we find it where if a woman isn't married by age 35, family members start to leave her the hell alone. Okay. Um, uh, if you choose to go off the beaten path, if you dare be independent, there are challenges. You pay for that. So I guess if it's truly, genuinely what you want, absolutely. But let's not discount the power of the subconscious. And Daniel Kahneman talks about this in Thinking Fast and Slow. We are being conditioned, and I don't want to go into this conspiracy theories crap because that's not me. But we are being like pseudo conditioned to think that that's what we want. And then when we get it, we realize we don't actually want it. I was just talking to my team earlier today. I'm like, yo, can we switch jobs? Like, just for like a month? Like, you be CEO, let me do your job. Like, just allow me to sleep. Cause there is nothing sexy about being CEO. The job fundamentally sucks. On the best day, it is a terrible freaking job. If you're doing it right and you are enjoying it, you're not doing it right. Now, of course, that's my perspective, right? There are some people that absolutely fundamentally love it. But from my perspective, you could not be doing this job and be doing it right and be loving it because the job itself is designed to suck. Like, it's such a shitty job. There are times I'm just like, man, why can't I just sit in an office and just collect my salary so that I know that on Friday I just go home and I have my weekends. But as a CEO, you're always working. Because when something comes up, you can't be like, yo, man, I'm off the clock. You're not off the clock. You can't be off the clock. The clock is on your head the entire time, right? So if we look deeper as individuals, as institutions, as a collective, and as nations, and we try to draw our own roadmap and be intentional about it, I suspect that we'll do much better than this complex situation we find ourselves.
Okay, so you think you're of the opinion that people that maybe find themselves unhappy now, they're probably there because they're not having the conversation with themselves. They're having the conversation with people outside of themselves. You're comparing yourself to people outside. You are probably looking at a person. There's so much fast money now. There's crypto. There is forex. There is fraud. There is, random stuff. Like people just go on TikTok every day, do day in my life vlogs and videos, and they have 2 million people watching them, and they're getting paid for it. So are you saying that people should not compare themselves to people like that? Or what is it that you're saying?
I mean, yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that delete your Instagram, delete your TikTok, delete your Facebook. If you must, delete your what's that one for
LinkedIn.
work? LinkedIn. I don't read anyone's stories on WhatsApp anymore because it was time to become a social networking thing. So I just blocked everyone, even though I would post from time to time, because I am very, very intentional about defining what my own happiness is going to be. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I'm coming of age where now my friends are becoming, commissioners, ministers, special advisors, and stuff like that. And when I think about where we were 10, 15 years ago, our vision for the type of country that we want to build, this particular friend of mine said to me, Ebun, don't think we're going to get there. Because unfortunately now, our friends who are now becoming ministers, who are becoming special advisors and stuff like that, they're on Instagram seeing somebody wear a $1.2 million Richard Mille watch or a Patek. They're seeing everybody fly business or on private jets. They're seeing, the Anthony Blinken jetting all over the world. The Home Secretary in the UK doing this and that. And essentially, they're comparing themselves to those people. And unfortunately, they are also living up to those hypes. So the ideals that we had when we were talking 10, 15 years ago about the type of country that we wanted to build, unfortunately, we may not build it. There's a chance that our generation, we're going to go in there and we're going to steal more money. We're going to go in there and do worse simply because we've been exposed to a whole lot more. Now, what's the difference between the politician who's hanging out in a nightclub where, an entrepreneur is there, and it's just, I'm not a saint, and I want to be very careful not to seem like I'm casting judgment on anyone, but I'm just saying that the world outside is defining a whole lot more than we should allow it to define. And if we were to perhaps take some time to really ask ourselves, what do we want? I think that's probably a good start. I think when we start becoming more specific about our goals, we would start to see and be able to tell how well we are doing versus how well we're not doing.
Okay.
I think we're not giving ourselves enough credit in terms of the progress that we have made. Now, I don't want to sound like this crazy optimist, right? But I also think we need to give ourselves a break. The world is better than it's ever been. Your chances of getting a cancer diagnosis today and surviving it are higher than it's ever been. We are making progress compared to past generations. So when people tell me about the good old days, I'm like, yeah, you go back there. I'm good. I don't want to go back to the good old days. I'm okay with this. What we do have to do, though, is that as we make this progress, we have to try to not forget our humanity. The technological advances that we're making, our fixation on artificial intelligence, machine learning, all these different things, we have to remember that all these things that we do and everything that we build is to serve our inherent humanity. We must not lose that. And we should also ask ourselves, when are we going too far? Because there is a point where we could go too far. And we should be okay with redefining capitalism and saying, no, we think, yes, you can make more money by artificial intelligence taking all the jobs, but what does that do to mankind? So no, we're gonna ban it. I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying that we should be okay with that conversation. We should be okay with the conversation of a global minimum income where across the world, we say everyone at least gets $1,000 a month. Because it's not okay.
Where's the money coming from, though?
We would, I'm going to use the crazy word that might get me labeled as a socialist, but we will redistribute wealth. So we're going to take money from the people that have billions and billions, because why do you need billions and billions when somebody cannot eat? Capitalism.
But do you not think that's going to affect you as a business owner? Do you think that everybody in your company should earn the same thing you earn?
No.
Why not?
Because I think everybody does not work as hard as the other person. So
Did
the person
you tell them to, and they didn't?
No, listen. At my company, we publish everybody's salary. It's in the open. If you think you're underpaid, come and talk to me and make a case for why you should be making more than that other person. If you can make the case, we will pay you more. If you cannot make that case, literally, leave my face. We don't actually do that whole hide what. No. We're very open about what everyone makes. And I believe that people that work harder should make more money. But there is a concept of enough. Because there is a concept where the accumulation of wealth becomes so concentrated on one end that it actually robs other people of that basic decency of life that's required. You know, we should be uncomfortable with a world where somebody has a private jet and is flying over the slums of Makoko. That makes no sense to me. And I think that capitalism, which I'm a capitalist, as with all other constructs, will go through an evolution. And I hope that as it evolves more towards this bent of humanity so that we can build a world that's kinder and gentler. One that does not remove this zeal for innovation and creativity, but one that also does not leave way too many people behind and detach innovation and creativity from humanity.
Okay. But you do know that making that your stance can raise a lot of questions, because who is measuring how much work someone is putting into something? Who is to say what you deserve, and why should they say what you deserve? I think I deserve a lot more money than I have now, but I don't have it, right? So who is going to make this call and say this is what you deserve and this is not what you deserve? It's too open-ended.
I agree. And back to books, right? One of the great books I read is it's called A More Perfect Question. Another book I recommend. And it's a book that says we have this in a world that's obsessed with answers. Perhaps we should be obsessed with questions. That if we're obsessed with questions and we continue to ask these questions, perhaps you can calibrate the right question to the right output. Right now, we're fixated on answers. And to your point, it's a good question. And I'm just asking the question. I don't have the answers. I'm not pretending to. All I'm saying is that at least let's keep these conversations in the forefront of our minds as we design a better future, as we go into the future. Because if we do not, I suspect that we will carelessly build a world that isn't gonna be fun. But hey, I'm in my 40s. I've already lived half of my life. So whatever you guys build, I ain't gonna be around for it. So that's on y'all.
Fair enough. That's very fair enough. So speaking to you from before the cameras to in front of the cameras, it feels like you've done a lot of reading, a lot of it feels like you've done a lot because I've read your blogs, I read your mediums, I read quite a few of them, and it just seems like it's a little bit different. Did you experience a rebrand, a rethink, a recalibration after Horrible Bosses, or this has always been Ebun and the media just captured the worst part of Ebun?
That's such a fascinating question. I love that. Yeah, no. So first thing I want to say to everyone is that please do not trend for Horrible Bosses. Do not go through that experience. It sucked. Okay. It was terrible. All right.
Do you want to tell us?
I don't literally. I still have PTSD over that shit. So please do not go through it. But that said, well, nobody's ever as good as their best act or as bad as their worst act. That's important. Now, I don't want to lend credence to, because I don't want to go into the ethics of journalism and whether I think what was written was fair or not. I will leave it to the academics to litigate that. But to your question around, have I evolved? I hope so. I hope that I learned something from that experience, because that was an experience that cast me in the light that perhaps, forced a lot of questions. There's that Kipling poem that's if I said, if you can, I forget the part, but it challenges you. Kipling challenges you to take criticism and make sure that you pay attention to the criticism and you just don't ignore it. But don't allow yourself to be defined by the criticism. I'm paraphrasing now. I don't really remember that particular part of the poem, but everyone knows if. I can tell you that I will be giving an article way, 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 way too much power if I think that that's something that could ever, 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 even remotely 1% come close to defining me or changing me or resetting my life in any way, shape, or form. Is it an important thing that's happened to me? Absolutely. It cast me in a very, very negative light. One that I think perhaps does not capture my entire story, but I also like the fact that I don't think my story can be captured in one article either. So I'm fine with that. That's just one person's narrative, and that's okay. Have I changed? I've gotten older. I got more gray hair. I experienced my brother's sickness. Right after that, I lost friends as a function of that. The economy has gotten much tougher as a function of that. We were coming out of COVID, which I think was this grand human experiment. So I think we are all fundamentally evolving. If the question is, am I a better human being now than I was? I don't think I've changed at all. I think okay, maybe that's the wrong way to put it. In the sense of like, am I kinda or whatever? No, I, I'm more mindful of when people put cameras in my face now, and like, I definitely, when the journalist calls me for questions, I respond. Because if I had just done that, I could have told them like, this is
Your own
90%.
side of the
This is
story.
90% BS. But I just thought, who are you? Bugger off. You know, big mistake, right? But I hope I come off as someone who has spent his life thinking, because I don't think that 2 years is enough to arrive at where I'm at today. I've definitely been more of the moody, broody thinker, emo guy. It just, and I spent some time in the gym, so it made people think maybe I was slightly tougher than I am, but not really. But yeah, I hope that experience, I learned something from it, just like I hope I learned something from every experience. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh, you know, always be learning. No, don't always be learning. Some things you don't need to learn, right? It's not worth your time. But that was a significant, interesting experience. I learned something from it, but that also, I don't think in any way, shape, or form encapsulates or captures or comes close to defining who I am, or how I view myself. Although I have learned to be slightly more careful in like just sending nasty text messages and nasty emails. I still do, trust me.
Okay, so did you just stop sending the nasty emails and text messages as a I want to do better, or as a God, let this thing just not happen again? So like the question is, okay.
Both. I don't want to send nasty messages because I oftentimes forget the power imbalance between myself and my team. So I don't realize that I can just tell someone, yo, just get the fuck out of my face. And that can ruin their day. I forget that. And I'm now maybe slightly more mindful of, okay, the power imbalance I need to use that more carefully.
Yeah.
And then the second part is knowing that we live in a world of gotcha journalism and you can trend for the wrong reasons. I don't want to trend again.
It's been a very good conversation, and we've come to the end of this episode. I'm so glad that we had such a long, insightful conversation. Ebun has been such a great guest. Before you go, make sure you are following us on our YouTube channel, Cafe One Pod, CAFEONEPOD, and follow us across all our social media, Cafe One NIG, CAFEONENIG. See you in our next one, and don't miss us too much. We'll be back shortly. Bye.